The story broke like thunder. One blurry photograph, Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson leaving a quiet restaurant in the middle of the night, was all it took to ignite a storm that would shake everything he had built. Within hours, headlines screamed betrayal. Jamie Dornan's secret night with Dakota Johnson. 50 Shades sparks real-life affair? Fans couldn't believe it. For years, Jamie and Amelia Warner had been the image of love that survived Hollywood, private, grounded, and unshakable. They were the couple who stayed home instead of chasing red carpets, the parents who protected their daughters from the noise. But now, that perfect picture was cracking, and the world was watching every piece fall. At first, Jamie said nothing. Neither did Dakota. Neither did Amelia. Silence, the kind that screams louder than words, filled the space between them. The media, hungry for answers, turned that silence into 1,000 stories. Some painted Jamie as a man lost in temptation. Others called Amelia a quiet victim. But no one truly knew what was happening behind closed doors. In those first days, Amelia stayed away from the public eye. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, from the school gates to the grocery store, capturing every tear, every forced smile. She never spoke to them, never lashed out. But those who saw her said the same thing. Her eyes told a story of betrayal and exhaustion. A close friend later shared, "She wasn't angry at first. She was just hurt. You could see it in the way she moved, slower, quieter, as if she was trying to hold herself together for the kids." Jamie, meanwhile, had vanished. His team issued a brief statement denying the rumors, but the damage was done. Whispers turned into headlines. Headlines turned into judgment. For the first time in his career, Jamie's name wasn't trending for a film or performance. It was trending for breaking the heart of the woman who had once saved him from fame's chaos. Insiders claimed the connection between Jamie and Dakota had begun on set, subtle at first, almost invisible. Acting can be dangerous that way. It demands vulnerability, emotional intimacy, trust that often blurs the lines between performance and reality. And somewhere in the long nights of filming, behind the lights and cameras, that line disappeared. For Amelia, the betrayal wasn't just about another woman. It was about the breaking of something sacred, trust. She had always understood Jamie's world, the pressure, the whispers, the long absences. But this was different. It wasn't distance this time, it was choice. One night, unable to sleep, she scrolled through old photos of them. Jamie holding their newborn daughter. The two of them laughing in the kitchen, messy hair and morning light. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Where did we go wrong?" Jamie, too, was falling apart. Friends described him as a ghost of himself. He stopped answering calls, stopped smiling. One crew member recalled finding him sitting alone on a set stairway, staring at nothing. He looked broken, the witness said. Like he knew he'd lost something he could never replace. Days turned into weeks, and speculation only grew. Amelia's silence became a statement in itself. Every move she made was dissected. Whether she still wore her wedding ring, whether she was seen with Jamie, whether she had forgiven him. But the truth was simpler and sadder. She hadn't decided anything yet. She was still trying to breathe. Despite the chaos, Amelia's focus never wavered from their children. Every morning, she took them to school, hand in hand, shielding them from the photographers who waited at the gates. She smiled for them, laughed for them, pretended that the world hadn't fallen apart. Because for her, being their mother mattered more than being his wife. Meanwhile, Jamie tried to reach out. Apologies, letters, late-night calls that went unanswered. He once left a message saying, "I can't undo what I did, but please don't let this be how our story ends." Amelia listened to it once and deleted it. Not because she didn't care, but because she wasn't ready. The media painted her as fragile, but those who truly knew Amelia saw something else: quiet strength. She didn't need to shout or expose him. She was protecting her dignity, and her daughter's peace, in a world that feasts on heartbreak. Then came the moment that changed everything. 3 weeks after the scandal broke, Amelia was seen again, this time, walking beside Jamie, their children between them. He looked ashamed, she looked serene. The cameras went wild. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't her face, it was her gesture. As they crossed the street, she reached for his hand. Just briefly, enough to silence a million voices. Because that single touch said more than any interview ever could. The world expected anger, revenge, or silence. Instead, Amelia Warner, the woman who had every reason to walk away, chose compassion. But forgiveness doesn't come easily. It comes with pain, patience, and an unspoken hope that love, even when cracked, can still hold a family together. And as one friend quietly put it, she didn't forgive him because he deserved it. She forgave him because her children deserved peace. Weeks passed, and the storm that had torn through Jamie Dornan's life began to quiet, but the silence that followed was heavier than any noise. The scandal had faded from the headlines, replaced by new stories, new faces. But for Jamie and Amelia, the real work was only beginning. They no longer spoke through lawyers or press releases. Instead, they met quietly, away from cameras, in the same small cafe they used to visit before everything became complicated. Jamie came first, nervously stirring his coffee, his hands trembling slightly. When Amelia arrived, she wore no makeup, no armor, just the calm, steady presence that had always been her strength. He stood up, unsure of what to say. "You look," he began, but the words died in his throat. She smiled faintly, not kindly, but not cruelly either. "You don't have to say anything, Jamie," she whispered. "Not today." The conversation that followed wasn't about excuses or explanations. It was about pain, about how love, once cracked, doesn't break suddenly. It splinters quietly until you realize you're standing on pieces. Jamie admitted everything. The blurred boundaries, the loneliness, the selfishness that blinded him. He didn't try to justify it. He simply said, "I was wrong." For a long moment, Amelia said nothing. Then she looked at him with eyes that were tired but not hard. "Do you know what hurt the most?" she asked. "It wasn't that you chose someone else. It's that you made me feel like I wasn't enough for you to stay." Jamie's eyes filled. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't deserve it yet. All he could say was, "I can't change what I did. But I can change what I do next." That meeting became the beginning of something fragile, a truce, not yet forgiveness, but a step toward healing. Amelia didn't promise to forget, but she allowed him to see the children again, to come home for dinner once a week, to exist in their lives without pretending that everything was fine. Behind the scenes, Jamie began rebuilding himself piece by piece. He stopped taking new film projects, attended therapy, and avoided the red carpets that had once defined his life. Instead, he spent time at home, cooking with his daughters, reading bedtime stories, learning how to be present. Friends noticed the change. He was quieter, one of them said. More grounded. It was like he finally realized fame means nothing if you can't face yourself. Amelia, too, was healing in her own way. She poured her emotions into music again, composing songs filled with melancholy and grace. Her lyrics spoke of heartbreak and strength, of storms and sunlight breaking through clouds. Fans who listened closely could feel her truth, pain transformed into art. And then, one afternoon, as Jamie arrived to pick up the children, something shifted. Amelia stood in the doorway, arms crossed, studying him. "They've missed you," she said softly. "So have I, in a strange way." Jamie froze. "Amelia." She shook her head gently. "Don't say anything. I just want you to know that I'm not angry anymore. I'm tired, and forgiveness feels lighter than hate." For the first time in months, he smiled, small, tentative, real. He whispered, "Thank you." That night, the family shared dinner together for the first time since the scandal. It wasn't perfect. The air was still fragile, the smiles hesitant. But there was laughter. Genuine laughter. When one of the girls spilled her juice and Jamie made a dramatic show of mopping it up. Amelia laughed too, and for a brief moment, the house felt like home again. The next morning, a photo surfaced online. It showed Jamie, Amelia, and their daughters walking through a park, the children chasing pigeons while their parents followed behind. They weren't holding hands, but they were walking side by side. The caption beneath it read, "Some families don't break, they bend." When asked later about Amelia, Jamie spoke carefully. "She's the strongest person I know," he said. "She taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about forgiveness. And forgiveness isn't easy. It's the bravest thing you can give someone." Amelia never commented publicly. She didn't need to. Her actions had already spoken. Months later, a close friend revealed a private conversation they'd had. "I forgave him," Amelia said, "not because I forgot, but because I didn't want our daughters to grow up believing love disappears when people make mistakes. They deserve to see that pain can turn into peace." In the end, there was no grand reunion, no fairy tale ending. Just something far more real: acceptance. Jamie learned humility, Amelia rediscovered her strength, and together they built a quieter, gentler version of family. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Because sometimes, forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about proving that love, even bruised and imperfect, can still stand through the storm.